right to vote is one of the most precious rights that we as Americans enjoy. By voting on leaders and issues, we help determine our way of life. You, as election workers, play a vital part in ensuring that everyone is able to vote in a secure and fair manner. This video is designed to help you on Election Day in setting up the polling place, allowing voters to vote, and assisting those with disabilities. More than 40 million people in the United States are disabled. You can help make voting accessible and pleasant for everyone. For elections held on Saturdays, the polls will open at 7 o'clock a.m. and close at 8 o'clock p.m. You must arrive at the polling place no later than 6:30 a.m. If the building isn't open or the commissioner in charge has not arrived by 6:30 a.m., call the clerk of court's office. For elections held on Tuesdays, the polls will open at 6 o'clock a.m. and close at 8 o'clock p.m. You must arrive at the polling place no later than 5:30 a.m. If the building isn't open or the commissioner in charge has not arrived by 5:30 a.m., call the clerk of court's office. Vote during the early voting period because you may not be assigned to work in your own precinct and you may not leave the polling place. Any breaks during the day should be organized by the clerk and/or the commissioner in charge while you remain at the polling place. The commissioner in charge administers the commissioner's oath on Election Day to all commissioners and takes the oath himself or herself prior to the opening of the polls on Election Day. Remember, the polls open at 7 a.m. for elections held on Saturdays and 6 o'clock a.m. for elections held on Tuesdays. The oath is found on the back of the informational pamphlet for Election Day voting. Safety hazards and barriers to voters must be secured and removed. Check your voting area for objects that might cause a mobility hazard. Look for electrical cords, clutter, unsecured mats or rugs, locked doors, or any other barrier to voting machines. If temporary accessibility equipment is being used, such as ramps, temporary signs, cones, or mats, make sure they're in place. Call the clerk's office immediately if you're missing any accessible temporary equipment. Position the voting machines next to an electrical wall outlet if possible in a well-lighted area and convenient for use. Remove the plastic cover and open every machine. If you observe any physical damage to any voting machine, notify the clerk of court and/or voting machine warehouse immediately and make a notation on the machine certificates. Lock the two back wheels in place by pressing your foot down on the back of each brake. Plug the electrical cord into a wall outlet. Check for the yellow power light on the machine and the operator panel. If you have more than one voting machine, use the daisy chain method to connect them. Keep the machines plugged into an outlet to keep the batteries charged. If there's a power outage, voting can continue by battery power, but notify the clerk of court immediately. Each precinct will have 1 to 2 supply machines with all supplies and an audio headset in the back. The sealed key envelope contains 2 voting machine keys. The yellow key opens the back door and front panels on the machine. The silver key opens the polls. The voting machine keys have serial numbers that match the serial number on the sides and top of the voting machine. If these numbers do not match, call the clerk's office immediately. Open the back of the machine by turning the yellow key clockwise. Make sure the serial numbers on the seal and cartridge match. The seal number on the key envelope should match the red seal number for the clear plastic cover over the blue results cartridge. If these numbers do not match or a seal has been broken, call the clerk's office immediately. From the back of the supply machines, remove the precinct registers and the green canvas supply bag, which contains a general forms envelope and a precinct supply envelope. For federal elections, there will be an additional envelope with specific federal supplies. Post the signage from your supply pack at the entrance to the polling place using the white tape included with your supplies. The supplies to be posted should include an election date and hours poster which you fill in the correct date and polling hours prior to posting, a picture ID notice to the voters, Louisiana's Voters' Bill of Rights, a sample ballot, accessible entrance sign, and stop sign. If possible, post the stop sign approximately 600 feet from the entrance. All political materials within the 600-foot campaign-free zone must be removed, unless the signs are on private property. Electioneering includes shirts, caps, buttons, cards, etc. that promote a candidate or an issue. They are not allowed. A voter can go to the restroom and turn his or her campaign shirt inside out. Commissioners may not make comments about candidates, propositions, or constitutional amendments. A commissioner in charge may ask a voter to leave after voting if the voter is electioneering or disturbing voting. If the voter does not leave, the commissioner in charge may call law enforcement. By the precinct register, place voter registration applications for voters to use to make changes to their registration or take home, and post any notices of candidate withdrawals or disqualifications, if any, but only when the clerk of court has provided you with an official notice. Before posting the accessible entrance sign, you may add directional arrows to the sign to help disabled individuals. If the main entrance is not the accessible entrance, you may post more than one accessible entrance sign. Please let the clerk know if you need any more signs, and call the clerk's office if you don't know where the accessible entrance is located. Remove and attach the operator panel by hanging it on either the left or the right exterior of the voting machine. Only the supply machine will have an audio unit bag. At the back of the machine, turn the red power knob to the on position. The operator panel should read, "Ready to open polls, election." If you get an error message, power off, count to 10, and power back on. If the error message reappears, call the clerk's office or the warehouse technician right away. If the operator panel reads "Ready to open polls, election," insert the silver key into the polls open-close slot. Turn the key to the open position, you'll hear an electronic sound, remove the key, and return it to the key envelope. It's important to remove the key so that you do not turn the key to the closed position before the end of voting at 8 o'clock p.m. If you were to turn the key to the closed position before the end of voting at 8 o'clock p.m., you could no longer use this machine. If this happens, call the clerk for another machine. After opening the polls, the official zero-proof sheet report will begin printing. Set up the voting machine while this report prints. Put the front voting panel in a vertical position. It won't drop or fall. This is the position to be used for voters who need to be seated while voting. Go to the back of the voting unit and release the maroon latch and tilt the voter panel until it is resting on the back of the voting unit. Unlock the front panel using the yellow key, turning counterclockwise. Unfold the doors. Carefully raise the top white panel with one hand and move the side door into place, carefully adjoining it with the bracket on the inside top of the door. Then adjoin the second door. Push the release button on the tube above the wheels, remove the cap and the curtains. Unroll the curtains and open the frame into a U shape. Gently push the arms of the curtain frame through the open knobs on the inside of the front doors. On the inside front door of the supply machine, you'll find the full-page magnifier and the Braille copy of the guide to using the audio voting keypad. Some voters may need the full-page magnifier when voting, or the Braille booklet when using the audio unit. Remove the audio unit bag and place it on the top corner opposite the operator panel. A laminated audio voting keypad quick chart is in the general supply envelope to assist in using the audio voting keypad. A voter does not have to be marked as needing assistance in order to use the full-page magnifier or audio unit. Please offer these items to a voter if needed or requested. Return them to the plastic pocket in the supply machine after 8 o'clock p.m. Remove the zero-proof sheet report from the printer to complete the machine certificate. Check the time on the report, and if it is incorrect, make a notation and initial it. Make sure there are only zeros by each candidate or proposition listed. Compare the zero-proof sheet report to the sample ballot from your supplies and to the ballot on the front of the voting machine to make sure all of the information is the same, including the ward and precinct. If any ballot information is not correct, call the clerk's office. The commissioner in charge and all of the commissioners must sign the zero-proof sheet report and post it at the entrance of the polling place after verifying that the protective counter on the tape matches the protective counter on the operator panel. Thread the operator panel cord through the groove in the upper corner of the back door. Close and lock the door with the yellow key, turning counterclockwise. After setting up all the machines, place all voting machine keys in the B2 keys envelope and seal. The commissioner in charge and all commissioners must sign the key envelope and not open it until voting is complete, or if instructed by the clerk of court or voting machine technician in order to assist in the voting machine operation due to a system error. On the machine certificate, write the time the machine keys were delivered, the serial number of each machine, seal number of each blue results cartridge, the numbers shown on the protective counter and public counter on each machine. The protective counter and public counter numbers are on the operator panel. It should read Voter Inactive Polls Open and show the protective counter number on the left side of the screen. The protective counter number shows the number of times the voting machine has been voted in its lifetime. The public counter number on the right side should be 0. It will record the number of voters voting on that machine during that election. If the number is not 0, call the clerk's office. At any time, you can compare the public counter number for all machines with the poll list number of voters, and they should be the same. Compare the protective counter number on the operator panel to the zeros report, then post at the entrance. If you are a parish with the A-frame Vote Here signs, they should be placed outside the polling place at the start of the election day and picked up at the end of the election day. Place the signs where voters can see them from the road while driving on election day. The drayman will deliver the signs with the voting machines, and you should return them to the voting machines at the end of the day. You will be notified in advance when your parish will have A-frame Vote Here signs. Individuals known as watchers may show up to monitor voting, but they may not interfere with voting. They may call out infractions of the law to the commissioner, and they may take notes, but they are not allowed to review or copy from the precinct register as it contains confidential information. Each candidate is entitled to one watcher and an alternate at every precinct where his or her name is on the ballot. A candidate may also have one watcher appointed as a super watcher. A candidate's super watcher is allowed into every precinct where the candidate is on the ballot. A person supporting or opposing a proposition may be entitled to a watcher only. Watchers and super watchers must have a commission issued by the Parish Board of Election Supervisors. Verify the commission and then return it. A watcher and alternate may not serve at the same time, but they can split the day or come and go, but may not disrupt voting. However, a super watcher and watcher are allowed to serve at the same time. Commissioners have the authority to regulate the number of watchers inside the polling place if necessary. Sometimes federal or court-appointed monitors will be allowed to observe an election. Verify their identification and refer to the informational pamphlet for the rules on watchers and monitors if needed. Before voting begins, cut the red seal on the precinct register and place it in the green canvas bag. A new red seal is in the front of the precinct register or in the green canvas bag for resealing it after the polls close. Sometimes a supplemental list of voters or supplemental list of absentee voters or both will be delivered. Review these immediately. If you have a supplemental list of voters, add it to the precinct register behind the supplemental tab in the precinct register. These are additional voters who are qualified to vote but are not in the original precinct register. Always check this list if you don't find the voter's name in the original precinct register. If you have a supplemental list of absentee voters, these are voters who have voted by mail and need to be marked in the original precinct register as having voted by mail. Find each voter's name in the precinct register and write the words "voted by mail" on the signature line and initial. Also initial the voter's name in the supplemental list of absentee voters. Then put the supplemental list of absentee voters in its envelope to be returned to the registrar of voters in the back of the precinct register. In review, the supplemental list of voters goes behind the tab Supplemental to look up voters, and the supplemental list of absentee voters needs to be used to mark those voters as having voted by mail in the original precinct register and the list returned to the registrar of voters. For more help, read the front of any envelope for specific instructions. The registrar of voters office may call to instruct you to mark "voted by mail" on a voter's signature line if a ballot is received from a military person or overseas citizen on Election Day. Any voter who has a visible physical disability with a wheelchair, walker, or cane, for example, and the person assisting may go to the front of the line. Also, any voter who presents a current mobility-impaired ID card with a photo and the international symbol for accessibility from the Office of Motor Vehicles and the person assisting them may also go to the front of the line. The Commissioner may advise these voters of their right to go to the front of the line. Talk to the voter, not to his or her assistant, and ask if they need help moving. With a visually impaired voter, do not take the voter's arm, but offer your help. Tell them exactly where you're walking and how many steps to the polling place table, for example. Do not touch any sight animal without asking the voter first. For a hearing impaired voter, you may gently tap his or her shoulder and point when showing where to go. Look directly at the voter and speak at an even, steady rate to aid lip reading, or write instructions. If a voter has a cognitive disability such as dementia or other aging-related disease, they may vote unless they've been denied the right by a court of law. The Commissioner may not decide if a person is competent to vote. If a voter has trouble understanding you, patiently repeat or rephrase your instructions. Plainly give instructions one at a time and wait until the task is completed before giving the next. Feel free to physically demonstrate. If a voter is in a wheelchair, you may lower the voting machine to help them cast their ballot. Go to the back of the machine and lift the maroon latch to move the display to the desired angle. Find the voter's name in the precinct register or supplemental list of voters in alpha order by last name. A female may be listed under a maiden or married last name, and therefore you may need to ask and check several last names to find the voter. A person who wants to vote shall give his name and address to a commissioner, and the commissioner shall announce the applicant's name and address and shall identify the applicant. The voter must either have a photo ID or complete a voter identification affidavit. You may accept a Louisiana driver's license, a Louisiana special identification card, or other generally recognized photo ID with the voter's picture and signature. Always compare the voter's name and date of birth to the precinct register to make certain that the person before you is the same person as indicated in the precinct register and not someone else with the same name. Do not turn away a voter for lack of identification. If a voter does not have a photo ID, they must complete a voter identification affidavit, including their date of birth and mother's maiden name, and sign it. Mother's maiden name is required on all voter registration applications, and therefore you will see each voter's mother's maiden name on the precinct register, or, if unknown, you will see the word unknown. If the applicant is unable to read or write or cannot complete the affidavit due to a disability, he may receive assistance in completing the affidavit, and the Commissioner shall make a notation on the affidavit regarding the assistance. The Commissioner compares the date of birth and mother's maiden name on the affidavit with the information in the precinct register, and if satisfied that the information is the same, proceeds to allow the person to vote. Follow the instructions in the disposition notice at the bottom of the form to distribute the form in the proper envelope. If the signature line for a voter reads "voted by mail" or "voted early," the voter may not vote at the polls. If it reads "address confirmation required," the voter must complete an address confirmation Election Day form before being allowed to vote. The applicant to vote is signing an affidavit to affirm his residential address. However, if the applicant is not able to affirm that he lives within the parish or that it has been less than 3 months since he moved outside the parish, he cannot vote. The commissioner should inform the applicant that he is not eligible to vote if he is not able to affirm his address on the address confirmation card, and give the applicant a voter registration application to complete and return to be eligible to vote in his new parish for the next election. Place the completed voter registration application in the ROV envelope. For a federal election, refer to the information on provisional voting to allow a provisional ballot to be cast when a person is not eligible to vote. If the voter's name is found in the precinct register or supplemental list of voters and they have not voted by mail or voted early, a commissioner announces the voter's name. 2 commissioners keep duplicate poll lists and each writes the name of the voter in a poll list for each precinct. A commissioner who works the precinct register may also keep a poll list if necessary. 1 poll list is yellow and 1 blue for placing in the color-coded envelopes. Remember, you can check the public counter numbers on your machine with the number of voters on your poll list, and they should match. If they don't, note the discrepancy on the inside of the last page of both poll lists with the time and details. If a voter's name is not found on the precinct register or supplemental list of voters, check the informational pamphlet on errors and omissions in voter records and call the Registrar of Voters' office or the Secretary of State's office for assistance. If the Registrar's office or the Secretary of State's office authorizes the person to vote, have the voter fill out the precinct register correction form, provide proper identification, and vote. Download the free app for GoVote through your App Store for smartphone or tablet, and you may assist a voter on Election Day to look up his registration and precinct information if needed. You may search by voter after the applicant provides the first name, last name, and zip code. Voters may be challenged for 3 reasons: not qualified to vote in the election, not qualified to vote in the precinct, or not the person whose name is on the precinct register. A commissioner, watcher, or qualified voter may challenge a voter by filling out a challenge of voter form. If a challenge is made, a majority of commissioners must decide if the challenge is valid. If invalid, the voter may vote. If valid and the challenge is due to a change of address, the voter may fill out an address confirmation card Election Day form and vote if they've moved within the parish. If they moved outside the parish within the last 3 months and have not registered at their new address, they may vote. However, if the applicant is not able to complete the form to affirm his residential address because it has been more than 3 months before the election since he moved outside the parish, he is not eligible to vote. The applicant does not complete the address confirmation card and instead completes a voter registration application and returns it to the commissioners to be eligible to vote in his new parish for the next election. Place the completed voter registration application in the ROV envelope. Remember that if it is a federal election, the voter may vote a provisional ballot. Have the voter sign or make his or her mark on the signature line next to his name in the precinct register, supplemental list, or behind the Voted by Affidavit tab if the applicant's name was added to the precinct register. Compare the voter's signature or mark with a photo ID or the voter identification affidavit. Initial the signature line. Louisiana law provides that a voter shall not receive assistance in voting unless he is unable to read or unable to vote without assistance because of a physical disability, including being visually impaired. A voter may be marked for assistance in the precinct register next to the last column as needing assistance in voting, with an I, H, B, or N. If there is not a notation on the precinct register, they must present either a doctor's certificate showing the voter's inability to vote without help, a current mobility impaired ID card with a photo and the international symbol for accessibility from the Office of Motor Vehicles, or a copy of documentation that proves disability from the Offices of Social Security, Veterans, Citizens with Developmental Disabilities, Louisiana Rehabilitation Services, or for paratransit services. No doctor's certificate is needed if the assistance required is because the voter is unable to read. A doctor's certificate and copies of any document proving disability must be kept and placed in the Registrar of Voters envelope. Return a mobility impaired ID card to the voter. The voter may receive assistance from anyone he or she chooses, even if they use the audio unit, but it may not be a candidate for that election, commissioner in charge, voter's employer or employer's agent, or union agent. Also, the Office of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities does not allow staff members of its state-operated facilities to assist residents in voting. If a voter is marked for assistance in the precinct register or shows proper proof of disability to receive assistance in voting and is accompanied by an assistant, the assistant must sign his or her name behind the tab Assistance to Voters, located in the back of the poll book after the commissioner prints the name of the assistant. If the voter chooses to use the audio unit, ask if they need instructions in Braille or English. Make sure you familiarize yourself with the audio unit. A voter with some visual impairment may choose to use the full-page magnifier to read the ballot. Any voter may use the audio unit, but they must notify the commissioner before the voting machine is activated. In cases where only some of the voters in your precinct can vote, your voting machines will have a lockout. You control lockouts from the operator panel. There may be a statewide election where everyone can vote, and a local school board race or special fire district issue where voters vote only on the candidate or issue in his or her district. Also, some precincts cover more than one district, so you may have more than one lockout. On the operator panel, there may be a menu indicating which selection to make on Election Day. First, look on the precinct register to see whether the voter may vote under the column Lockout Districts and choose the number listed for that voter on the operator panel. For example, if the Lockout District column has Button 1, the commissioner will choose Button 1 on the operator panel for that voter and allow the voter to vote in that race. After making the selection on the operator panel, press the green Activate button. If you accidentally press a wrong lockout button number, press the correct button number before you press Activate. If you have already pressed Activate with an incorrect lockout, call the clerk's office for help. For a regular voter, activate the machine by pressing the green Activate button on the operator panel. It will make a sound, and the light next to the green button will come on. The display screen on the operator panel will read Voter Active, and the booth light will come on. Tell the voter to enter when it's his or her turn. Curtains won't automatically open and close. The voter should look for the green header lights by the titles of offices that he can vote for, not the box where you make your selection for a candidate. To vote for a candidate, a voter must press the white box to the right of the candidate's name and next to the yes or no for propositions. A green X will light up to the left of the box, and the green header light for the office or proposition will turn off. To change a vote, the voter must deselect the candidate by pressing the white box again by the candidate or proposition. The green X will disappear, and the green header light will light back up. The voter must then press the white box by the new candidate selection, and the green X will appear there. After making selections, the voter must press the orange Cast Vote button in the bottom right-hand corner. You'll hear an electronic beep like this. A vote is not recorded until the Cast Vote button is pressed. Also, the voter must vote for at least one candidate or issue for the Cast Vote button to work. If a voter brings a child with him, have the child stand on the left side of the voter to prevent the child from accidentally pressing the Cast Vote button prematurely. Nothing can be changed after the Cast Vote button is pressed. Voters are allowed 3 minutes to vote, or 20 minutes if using the audio unit to vote. If a voter is using the audio unit, give the audio keypad and headset to the voter before they enter, or they may use their own headset if it has a universal plug. You may strap the keypad to the voter's arm or wheelchair, or they may hold it. If the voter uses a sip and puff method, It can be inserted into the bottom right-hand corner of the keypad. To operate the audio unit, activate it on the operator panel before activating the machine. Very simply, it's yellow, yellow, green, green for audio voting. If your audio voter has a lockout, it's yellow, yellow, green, lockout button, green. After each voter, the machine will automatically return to regular voting and is ready to push the green Activate button for the next voter. Sometimes a voter may forget to press the orange Cast Vote button. If you do not hear this sound, the voter did not press the Cast Vote button. You must make sure his vote is recorded. First, try to stop the voter from leaving. If that's not possible, press the Cast Vote button by reaching your hand under the curtain and pressing the button for the voter. Do not enter the booth. A voter's selections are confidential. You'll hear the electronic beep that the vote has been recorded. You may also check the display screen on the operator panel to see if a voter has pressed the Cast Vote button. If he did, the screen will read, "Voter inactive polls open," and the public and protective counter will each have increased by 1, and the booth lights will be off. You may then activate the machine for the next voter. A voter may leave the voting machine without making any selections, to protest vote or try to register a no vote. If you don't hear a beep, reach under the curtain and press the Cast Vote button. If nothing happens, no selection was made. Make a notation on the inside of the last page of both poll lists under Notice of Irregularities, because your poll list will have one more than your public counter. Call the clerk's office for assistance if needed. Law enforcement officials may only enter the polling place to vote, or if called by a commissioner to enforce commissioner's orders. Commissioners may call law enforcement to assist in preserving order, enforcing election laws, or protecting election officials from interference with the performance of their duties. Law enforcement officers may not serve as a commissioner or a watcher. However, law enforcement officers may be stationed at polling places if they provide security for the public building or personnel where the polling place is located in the regular course and scope of their duties. Never close the polls before 8 o'clock p.m. Any voter in line at 8 o'clock p.m. may vote. Move the voters inside the polling place if possible. Close and lock the doors, or post a commissioner at the end of the line at 8 o'clock, but let everyone in line vote. If your precinct has the Vote Here A-frame signs, please remember to bring them in after the polls close and place them next to the voting machines for pickup by the drayman. Certify the correctness of the 2 duplicate poll lists and sign the back covers. Note any discrepancies on the inside of the last page of both poll lists on the Notice of Irregularities page. Remove the machine keys from the B2 keys envelope. Unlock and open the back door with the yellow key. Use the silver key, turning the poll's open-close slot clockwise to closed. You'll hear an electronic sound. Be careful not to turn the key back to open. Remove the key and the printer will print 4 election results reports. While these are printing, begin closing the front of the voting machine. Remove the curtain, roll it up, and place it in the storage tube above the wheels. Place the full-page magnifier and Braille instruction booklet in the pocket on the front door of the supply voting machine. After 4 copies of the results have printed and have been signed, break the security seal and remove the blue results cartridges from each machine. And then, turn off the red power on-off knob to off. Place 1 results tape for each machine and all blue results cartridges in the plastic zipper bag for delivery to the clerk's office. Remove the operator panel from the side of the voting machine and hang it on the back. Return all the audio unit components to the black bag and put in the back of the machine. Unplug the cord and pull it gently until it retracts. Unlatch the front doors from the top white panel and fold the top panel down, then the right door and the left. Secure the latch and lock the doors with the yellow key. Lower the large voter panel to the down position by pulling the maroon latch release handle. Do not force the panel. Distribute the 4 election results reports from each machine. One goes in the yellow S19 Secretary of State envelope, one in the blue P16 Put in Voting Machine envelope, one in the clear plastic zipper bag for the clerk's office, and tape one to the outside wall of the polling place or inside on glass that may be viewed from the outside using the white tape provided in the green canvas supply bag. Complete the machine certificates with the time the polls were closed or the time the last person in line voted, machine serial numbers, final public and protective counter numbers, and have all commissioners sign the certificates. Distribute the copies of the machine certificate according to the instructions on the bottom of the form. Complete the affidavit for payroll form. Each commissioner should write his own information on the affidavit and certify that the information is correct. The commissioner's name must be the same as on the Social Security card, and the last 4 numbers of the Social Security number must be provided, along with the mailing address, signature, and initials of each commissioner and the hours worked for each commissioner. Follow the instructions at the bottom of the affidavit to distribute the original and copy. The original must be placed in the clear plastic zipper bag for the clerk's office for payroll submission by the clerk of court to the Secretary of State. Checks are mailed by the Secretary of State's office 30 days after payroll is submitted by the clerk's office. Calling before that time may only delay the process of payroll. Remove the zero proof sheet report from the wall and place it in the blue P16 Put in Voting Machine envelope. Take down all posters and signs and discard. All unused forms and supplies are to be returned to the general forms envelope and placed in the green canvas bag to go in the back of the voting machine. Secure any temporary accessibility equipment and/or signs and move equipment and furniture to their original places. Dispose of all trash and leave the polling place clean and neat. Check all 4 envelopes before sealing. The Registrar of Voters envelope, P16 Put in Voting Machine envelope, S19 Secretary of State envelope, and the clerk's clear plastic zipper bag. If you accidentally left out a form after sealing the envelopes, write the name of the envelope in the upper right corner of the form where it needs to be delivered and give to the clerk in the clear plastic zipper bag. Seal the precinct register with the red seal. Place the sealed precinct register with the supplemental list envelope and the Registrar of Voters envelope in the registrar's canvas bag or in the back of the voting machine. 4 items go in the back of the voting machine. The registrar's canvas bag, which should contain the precinct register with the supplemental list and Registrar of Voters envelope, the P16 Put in Voting Machine envelope, the green canvas bag with the general forms envelope, and the black audio bag. Close and lock the back doors of the voting machine with the yellow key and place the keys in the voting machine return key envelope, which is the C3 key envelope. Have all commissioners sign the envelope and place it in the clear plastic zipper bag with the blue results cartridges and a result tape from each machine. The clear plastic zipper bag must be delivered to the clerk's office by the commissioner in charge immediately after closing the polling place. It must contain 5 items: the blue results cartridge from each machine, 1 official election results report tape from each machine, the original affidavit for payroll form, the original machine certificate, and the voting machine return key envelope or the C3 key envelope. The commissioner in charge must drop the yellow S19 Secretary of State envelope in a mailbox. Remember, if you have any trouble on Election Day, call the Clerk of Court's office. Elections are all about equal access and representation in government. By operating polling places on Election Day and showing extra effort to individuals with disabilities, you're helping the state of Louisiana meet its commitment to every voter to a fair and competent voting experience. Thank you. Please wait to review the next section on provisional voting if you are training for a federal election. Provisional voting ensures that every U.S. citizen who is eligible to vote in a federal election will be able to do so. A paper provisional ballot is used to allow a person to vote when there's a question about the voter's eligibility. The person must certify that he or she is a registered voter in the parish and eligible to vote in a federal election before casting a provisional ballot. A provisional ballot is a paper ballot that is cast provisionally until election officials can verify the voter's eligibility to vote in the federal election.
All forms and envelopes except the provisional ballots used with provisional voting will be printed with purple ink. For all federal elections, commissioners will receive additional supplies that include 1. One Braille booklet envelope, which will be located in the green canvas bag, and 2. One purple supply envelope for Election Day provisional ballots, which will be located in the precinct-specific envelope, or commonly referred to as the PSE envelope. The purple supply envelope for Election Day provisional ballots will contain the provisional ballots and affidavit envelopes for the precinct, pencils, and a purple return provisional ballot envelope. It's important to always open the purple supply envelope for Election Day provisional ballots and inventory your supplies in a federal election. Follow the instructions in the informational pamphlet for Election Day voting to allow for provisional voting in federal elections. When the election day ends, place the voted provisional ballots, provisional ballot stubs, and all unused provisional ballots and affidavit envelopes in the purple return provisional ballot envelope and return it to the clerk of court in the clear plastic zipper bag. The Braille booklet provides voting information for any voter with a visual impairment who reads Braille, and it will be returned to the green canvas bag.
Provisional voting applies only to elections for federal office. That includes presidential preference primary, U.S. President, U.S. Senator, and/or U.S. Representative. It does not apply to local or state elections.
Provisional voting applies to 4 categories of voter. 1. A person whose name does not appear in the precinct register or supplemental register and who is not authorized to vote by an election official. Number 2. A voter who is challenged and a majority of the commissioners determine that the challenge is valid. Number 3. A voter whose name is in the precinct register and address confirmation required is in the signature block, and the person is not able to complete the form to affirm his residential address because it has been more than 3 months before the election since the person moved outside of the parish. And finally, a voter who votes in a federal election during court-ordered extended poll hours.
There are several issues that we will review on provisional voting and explain the commissioner action and voter result. These issues, commissioner actions, and voter result can be found in a provisional chart in Part 5 of the informational pamphlet for Election Day voting. Issue number 1. The voter's name is not found in the precinct register or supplemental list of voters. Commissioner action is to call the Registrar of Voters or the Secretary of State's office to receive authorization. There are 3 possible actions depending on the Registrar or Secretary of State's information. Number 1, if the Registrar or Secretary of State authorizes the person to vote, the Commissioner completes a precinct register correction form, and the voter signs and is allowed to vote for the eligible offices on the voting machine. The voter is not a provisional voter. Number 2, if the Registrar or Secretary of State does not authorize the person to vote because the voter is in the wrong precinct, inform the voter that in order to vote for all eligible offices on the voting machine, he would need to go to the correct precinct. If the voter wants to vote, he may cast a paper provisional ballot for federal offices only. Or number 3, if the Registrar or Secretary of State does not authorize the person to vote because he is not eligible to vote, inform the voter that he has not been authorized to vote. If he wants to vote, he may cast a paper provisional ballot for federal offices only. Issue number 2. A person's name was printed incorrectly in the precinct register. The Commissioner completes a precinct register correction form, and the voter signs, and the voter is allowed to vote for all eligible offices on the voting machine. The voter is not a provisional voter. Issue number 3. The voter's name is in the precinct register, but the voter is challenged. The Commissioners must vote to determine whether or not the challenge is valid. There are 2 possible actions depending on the vote of the challenge. Number 1. If the challenge is valid, the voter may cast a paper provisional ballot for federal offices only. He is a provisional voter. Or, number 2, if the challenge is not valid, the voter may vote for all eligible offices on the voting machine. Issue number 4. The voter's name is in the precinct register and address confirmation required is in the signature block. Commissioner follows the instructions on the address confirmation card Election Day form for completion by both the commissioner and the voter. There are 3 possible actions depending on the box checked by the voter on the address confirmation card Election Day form. Number 1. If the voter checks box 1 that his physical address is correct, the voter must provide photo identification. The voter also has the option to provide an additional mailing address on this form. If no photo ID, the voter signs a voter identification affidavit and he is allowed to vote for all eligible offices on the voting machine. Number 2, if the voter checks box 2 that his address is not correct because he moved within the parish, the voter must provide photo identification. If no photo ID, the voter signs a voter identification affidavit and he is allowed to vote for all eligible offices on the voting machine.
And 3, if the voter checks box 3 that he no longer lives within the parish but has moved outside the parish within the last 3 months, the voter must provide photo identification. If no photo ID, the voter signs a voter identification affidavit and he is allowed to vote for all eligible offices on the voting machine. However, if the applicant has moved outside the parish more than 3 months before the election, he is not eligible to vote. The voter may cast a paper provisional ballot for federal offices only. He is a provisional voter. He does not complete the address confirmation card and instead completes a voter registration application and returns it to the commissioners to be eligible to vote in his new parish for the next election. Issue 5. If the commissioner is informed by the clerk of court or secretary of state's office that poll hours for the election for federal office have been extended, there are 2 actions required by the commissioner. Number 1, allow all voters during extended poll hours to vote a paper provisional ballot for federal office only. No one is eligible to vote on the voting machine. Number 2, write extended poll hours next to each provisional voter's name in the poll list and on each provisional ballot affidavit envelope for each voted ballot.
A commissioner prints the voter's name in the precinct register on the page for provisional voters. The voter signs next to his name, prints his address, and the commissioner initials. 2 commissioners write the name of the voter on the second to last page of each poll list, starting at number 1681. The commissioner selects the appropriate provisional ballot, removes the ballot number stub from the bottom of the right corner, and retains the stub. The commissioner completes the provisional ballot affidavit envelope flap by writing the ballot stub number in 2 places on the envelope flap and writing the ward, if any, and the precinct number. The envelope clearly states where the commissioner is to complete information and where the voter completes information. The voter completes the information on the envelope flap and signs. The commissioner gives the voter the provisional ballot affidavit envelope, and a pencil, and directs the voter to a private area where he can mark the ballot in secret. After voting, the voter seals the ballot inside the envelope and returns it to the commissioner. A pencil is provided so the voter may change his vote if he chooses, but a voter may use a pen to mark the ballot. The commissioner verifies that all information is completed on the sealed envelope flap and that the voter has signed, and then the commissioner dates and signs. The commissioner removes the red "to the provisional voters" portion of the envelope flap and gives it to the voter. The commissioner places the sealed envelope and the ballot number stub inside the provisional ballot envelope.
Commissioners must complete the front of the purple return provisional ballot envelope by listing the total number of provisional voters listed in the poll list starting at number 1681 and the total number of voted provisional ballots included in the return envelope. If the numbers do not match, the commissioners should write an explanation, and if no provisional ballots were used, the commissioner shall enter zeros. You must use the return envelope to return all voted provisional ballots, which are enclosed in an affidavit envelope, all provisional ballot stubs, and all unused provisional ballots and envelopes. Once all items have been placed in the return envelope, place the return envelope in the clear plastic zipper bag for delivery to the clerk of court on election night.